When we talk about restoration, especially from a spiritual perspective, many people limit the idea to simply getting back what was lost. But in truth, God's principle of restoration goes far beyond just replacing what you once had. It's about redeeming time, reshaping character, and preparing you for something greater than what you originally experienced. When we feel like years have been wasted, whether through mistakes, distractions, broken relationships, or circumstances beyond our control, there's often this deep sense of regret that weighs us down. We tell ourselves, if only I had started earlier, if only I had made better choices, if only life had treated me differently. Those if only thoughts are chains that hold people hostage to the past. But God's principle of restoration breaks those chains. He doesn't simply rewind the clock, He renews the story. The first thing to understand is that time with God is never wasted. Even in your darkest seasons, even in your most unproductive years, something was being built inside you. Maybe you didn't see it, maybe you weren't aware of it, but every hardship carried a lesson. Every delay produced patience. Every disappointment revealed what you truly value. Restoration doesn't mean pretending those years didn't happen. It means seeing them as the soil out of which a new harvest can grow. A seed doesn't look like much when it is buried in the ground. It seems lost, hidden, wasted. But the moment rain and light come, that same buried seed pushes through and produces life. In the same way, those wasted years weren't wasted at all. They were buried years, and now God is sending the rain. Another dimension of restoration is this: God has the ability to accelerate outcomes in your life. Think of it like this: if you feel you lost 5 or 10 years, God can pack what should have taken you a decade into a single year. He can fast-forward growth, expand opportunities, and multiply results in ways you never imagined. That's why we must shift our mindset from scarcity to abundance, from regret to readiness. When you carry the belief that God is restoring your time, you stop living as though your best days are behind you and start acting as though your best days are being built right now. Restoration also requires cooperation. God promises to restore, but we must choose to participate. That means embracing discipline, letting go of toxic environments, and stepping into new habits. If you spent years being careless with your health, restoration looks like God giving you the strength and wisdom to rebuild your body through better choices. If you wasted years chasing the wrong people or wrong goals, restoration looks like God opening your eyes to new paths and aligning you with relationships that truly support your growth. But here's the truth. If you keep doing what wasted your years before, you won't be ready to receive the restoration He's trying to give you. There's also a psychological shift that comes with restoration. When people feel they've wasted years, they often carry guilt and self-condemnation. They say, "I blew it, I missed my chance, I'm too old, it's too late." But here's the educational point. Neuroscience shows us that the brain remains plastic throughout life. It can change, rewire, and grow at any age. Spiritually, this aligns with God's promises. "Behold, I make all things new." That means your past failures are not a life sentence. They are lessons that prepare you for restoration. When you internalize this, your self-talk changes. You stop saying, "I'm behind," and start declaring, "I'm being restored." Restoration also involves your sense of identity. Many wasted years come from living disconnected from who we really are, trying to be someone else, pleasing others, or suppressing our true gifts. God's restoration calls you back to authenticity. He begins to remind you of your original design, your passions, your talents, and your calling. He strips away the false labels placed on you and reawakens the person you were always meant to be. That's why many people who experience restoration say they feel more themselves than they ever did before. Finally, restoration carries multiplication. When God restores, He doesn't just give you what you lost, He adds more. The years of pain birth deeper compassion. The years of failure birth greater wisdom. The years of waiting birth stronger faith. So restoration is not a return to normal. It's a transformation into something extraordinary. Think of Job in the Bible. After all his suffering, God restored him with double what he lost. That's the principle at work. You may have felt robbed of time, opportunities, or joy, but restoration will return it in greater measure. So, as you step into 2025, remember this. Wasted years are not wasted in the eyes of God. They are raw material. They are the backdrop for His greatest work in your life. Restoration is not just possible, it's promised. And the moment you begin to see your past not as wasted but as preparation, you position yourself to receive everything God is ready to pour into your future. Renewal is often subtle before it becomes visible. It rarely arrives in dramatic ways at first. Instead, it begins as small shifts in your mindset, your emotions, and your daily experiences. If you pay attention, you will notice that the process of being renewed starts long before external changes appear. For many people, this can feel like a stirring deep within the soul, a quiet sense that something fresh is unfolding, even if nothing around them looks different yet. This awareness is important because when you recognize the signs of renewal, you no longer dismiss them as coincidence. You see them as signals that God is restoring what was once lost. One of the clearest signs is a change in appetite for growth. After years of feeling numb, stuck, or uninspired, suddenly there's a spark inside you that wants to learn again, wants to try again, wants to push beyond limitations. Renewal often starts with curiosity. You may find yourself drawn to books, teachings, or experiences that expand your understanding. This hunger is not random. It is a divine signal that your spirit is waking up. Renewal always begins with a desire to grow. Without that desire, opportunities can appear but remain unrecognized. With that desire, even small resources become fuel for transformation. Another sign is that your perspective begins to shift. Situations that once felt like a dead end now look like stepping stones. Failures that used to shame you now teach you. Even pain takes on a new meaning. When your eyes begin to see differently, it's evidence that God is reshaping how you interpret your life. This is renewal at work, not the removal of challenges, but the reprogramming of your inner lens so that you can see challenges as opportunities to build strength. It's a mental reorientation that shifts you from victimhood to victory. Emotional restoration is also a clear signal. Where there was once heaviness, you start to feel lightness. Where there was hopelessness, you feel a rising sense of hope again. This doesn't mean every day is easy or that struggles vanish overnight, but it means that the dominant tone of your inner world begins to move toward peace. Renewal gives you an unexplainable confidence, a calm assurance that something better is coming, even if the evidence is not yet visible. Psychologists describe this as resilience, the ability to bounce back from adversity. Spiritually, it is more than resilience, it is renewal, because the source of this hope is not just within you, but flowing through you from God. A practical sign of renewal is when new opportunities begin to cross your path. Suddenly, people enter your life who encourage and inspire you. Unexpected doors open, jobs, projects, or connections that seemed impossible before now become available. Renewal always attracts new possibilities, but here is the important part. You recognize them as opportunities instead of dismissing them out of fear. When you are renewed, you are more open to say yes to growth rather than hiding behind excuses. You stop sabotaging yourself with old patterns and begin to align with new paths. There is also the restoration of relationships. Renewal doesn't always mean that every broken connection will be healed, but it often means reconciliation where it matters most. Sometimes God restores through forgiveness, sometimes by giving you the courage to move on from toxic ties, and other times by bringing the right people into your life to replace the wrong ones. Either way, renewal is visible in how your relationships begin to shift toward greater health. You find yourself surrounded more by people who support your calling rather than hinder it. That's not random. That's renewal restructuring your community. Renewal shows itself through energy as well. After seasons of exhaustion, you suddenly feel strength returning. You may find yourself waking up earlier, setting goals again, or feeling motivated to care for your body. This energy isn't only physical, it's mental and spiritual. You have clarity about what matters. You stop wasting energy on distractions and start focusing on the essentials. Renewal gives you focus, and with focus comes momentum. One of the deepest signs of renewal is a new sense of identity. You begin to remember who you are at your core. The lies you believed about yourself lose their power. You stop saying "I can't" and start declaring "I will." A renewal reawakens your God-given identity, reminding you of your worth and purpose. When this happens, you walk differently, speak differently, and think differently. It's not arrogance. It's alignment with the truth of who you were designed to be. The final and perhaps most powerful sign is expectation. Renewal births anticipation. Instead of fearing the future, you start to look forward to it. Instead of dreading tomorrow, you see it as an open canvas. This expectation is not wishful thinking, it's faith. It's the belief that your story is not finished and that greater chapters are ahead. Expectation is fuel. It pushes you to act, to prepare, and to embrace opportunities. When you carry expectation, you attract outcomes that align with that hope. All of these signs, curiosity, perspective shifts, emotional peace, opportunities, relational health, renewed energy, identity clarity, and expectation form the evidence that renewal is alive in you. When you see them, don't dismiss them as small. Recognize them as the very signals that your wasted years are being restored. Renewal is not always loud. Sometimes it's as gentle as a whisper. But if you listen closely, you'll realize that whisper is announcing the beginning of a brand new chapter in your life. Faith on its own is powerful, but faith without action is incomplete. Many people spend years hoping, praying, and waiting for change while doing nothing to prepare for it. They say they believe, but their actions contradict their words. True faith is not passive, it's active. It expresses itself through steps, decisions, and commitments that align with what you claim to believe. If you trust that restoration is possible, your behavior must reflect that trust. Faith provides the vision, but action builds the bridge toward it. Without action, vision remains a dream. With action, vision becomes reality. Faith begins as belief in something greater than yourself, a conviction that your future does not have to mirror your past. It is the confidence that what looks impossible now can be transformed by God's power and your willingness to step forward. But belief must be followed by movement. Think about it like planting a seed. You can believe all day long that a seed will grow, but if you never put it in the ground, nothing will happen. In the same way, you may believe restoration is coming, but if you refuse to change your habits, improve your mindset, or take risks, you block the very blessings that could flow into your life. One of the ways faith and action work together is through preparation. When you truly expect something, you get ready for it before it arrives. If you believe God is restoring your finances, you start managing money with discipline, even if you don't have much right now. If you believe your health will be restored, you begin exercising, eating wisely, and treating your body with care before the results show up. If you believe your relationships will improve, you practice forgiveness, communicate with honesty, and open your heart again. Faith says it will happen. Action says I'm preparing as if it's already happening. This combination attracts breakthroughs because it shows you are aligning yourself with what you expect. Another essential connection between faith and action is courage. Faith without courage remains trapped in theory. To act on faith means stepping into places that are uncertain, uncomfortable, and sometimes even risky. It means applying for that position even if you feel underqualified, starting that business even if fear whispers you'll fail, or pursuing that dream even if others doubt you. Courage doesn't mean the absence of fear. It means moving forward despite it. Faith gives you the assurance that you are not alone, that God walks with you, and that even if you stumble, He will use the stumble as part of your story of restoration. Action also builds momentum. Many times, people wait to feel motivated before they act. But motivation often comes after you take the first step, not before it. The act of starting creates energy. If you wait for perfect conditions, you will wait forever. Faith calls you to step even when the ground feels shaky. When you act, you create opportunities for God to multiply your efforts. That's why small, consistent steps matter. You don't need to transform everything in one day, just begin. Each action compounds, and over time, those small steps create big results. There is also a psychological transformation that happens when faith and action align. When you act on what you believe, you reinforce that belief. Your brain begins to register that your faith is not just wishful thinking, it is lived reality. For example, if you believe you can become healthier and you start walking daily, each walk becomes evidence that your belief is true. This creates a feedback loop that strengthens both faith and action. On the other hand, if you claim faith but never act, your subconscious begins to doubt, and over time your belief weakens. This is why action is not optional, it sustains and strengthens faith. Education teaches us that behavior shapes identity. Spiritually, this aligns with the principle that faith without works is dead. In other words, it is not enough to say you trust in restoration, you must behave as someone being restored. That means speaking with confidence instead of defeat, showing discipline instead of laziness, making bold choices instead of hiding in fear. The more your actions align with your faith, the more powerful your identity becomes. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of wasted years and start living as a steward of restored years. The final layer of the power of faith and action is persistence. Acting once is easy. Acting consistently is harder. But faith-driven action requires endurance. Restoration is not always instant. It is often a process. Seeds take time to grow. Efforts take time to show results. If you stop acting when progress seems invisible, you short-circuit your own breakthrough. Persistence is proof of faith. Every time you keep going when nothing changes, you demonstrate that your trust is in God's timing, not your own impatience. And it is often in the moments right after you feel like giving up that the greatest shifts occur, so faith and action together become a force that rewrites your life. Faith gives you vision, courage, and assurance. Action makes that faith visible, tangible, and practical. When you combine them, you position yourself for restoration in ways that mere wishing or mere effort alone could never achieve. Faith without action is empty hope. Action without faith is exhausting struggle. But when faith and action meet, restoration becomes inevitable because you are living as though the promise is already true. Every year carries its own rhythm, its own opportunities, and its own challenges, but there are seasons in life when the timing feels different, when circumstances align in such a way that a sense of destiny awakens inside you. That is what 2025 represents for many people, a year not simply of survival, but of restoration, a year in which lost time is redeemed, new doors open, and dreams long buried are given fresh life. To see this year correctly, you have to approach it with the mindset that it is not just another date on the calendar, but a divine invitation to step into something new. The promise of 2025 is built on the idea that your past does not have to dictate your future. Many people enter a new year carrying the same baggage of the old one, regret, fear, bitterness, or feelings of failure. But when you look at 2025 through the lens of restoration, you begin to realize that every setback of yesterday was preparation for the comeback of today. Time that felt wasted was actually groundwork for what is coming. That's why this year is so significant. It's not just a continuation of your life story, it's a reset, a chance to realign with purpose, and an opportunity to experience blessings in greater measure. What makes 2025 different is the awareness that seasons change. You may have endured years of struggle, years that seemed dry and unproductive, but the promise of this year is that the tide is turning. Think of how winter always gives way to spring. No matter how long the cold lingers, growth eventually breaks through the frozen ground. 2025 is that spring season for many lives. You might not see the full bloom on the first day, but the signs are already there. Opportunities appearing, relationships shifting, energy returning, hope rising. When you believe in the promise of this year, you start to see these signs as confirmation rather than coincidence. Another dimension of the promise is acceleration. What may have taken years in the past can happen in months now. The restoration of wasted years does not simply mean a slow rebuilding. It often means a rapid unfolding. This acceleration is not random. It is the result of alignment. When your faith, actions, and mindset come into agreement with God's timing, things that once felt delayed can suddenly move quickly. That's why 2025 is a year to be alert and ready. Opportunities may come fast, and if you hesitate, you may miss them. But if you're prepared, you can step into them confidently and watch your life shift dramatically. The promise also includes abundance. For too long, many people have lived in survival mode, doing just enough to get by, carrying a mentality of scarcity, or believing they're undeserving of more. But restoration does not return you to the level of survival. It elevates you to abundance. In practical terms, this might mean financial breakthroughs, stronger health, or deeper relationships. Spiritually, it means peace of mind, clarity of purpose, and fulfillment in ways that money or status alone could never provide. The abundance of 2025 is not about excess. It's about sufficiency overflowing into joy. It is also a year of clarity. Wasted years are often marked by confusion, chasing the wrong paths, following the wrong people, or investing energy into things that had no return. But one of the promises of this season is that clarity will come. You will know what to pursue and what to release. You will stop pouring into dead ends and start building on fertile ground. That sense of focus will save you time and energy, ensuring that the next steps you take are strategic rather than random. When clarity comes, confidence follows, and when confidence follows, progress accelerates. Equally important is the promise of renewal in identity. 2025 is not just about restoring what you lost. It is about restoring who you are. Many people have allowed years of disappointment to shape their self-image. They see themselves as failures, victims, or people who missed their chance. But this is the year when those false identities are stripped away. You begin to see yourself not as broken, but as becoming whole, not as behind, but as right on time, not as overlooked, but as chosen. This shift in identity is the foundation of all other forms of restoration, because you will never rise higher than the way you see yourself. Finally, the promise of 2025 is hope. Hope is more than wishful thinking. It is expectation anchored in faith. It is waking up each day with the belief that something good is unfolding, even if you can't see it fully yet. Hope fuels endurance. Hope strengthens resilience. Hope keeps you moving when circumstances tempt you to stop. And in 2025, hope is not vague. It is specific. It is the hope that wasted years will be redeemed, that missed opportunities will be replaced, and that your story is not ending in regret but rising into redemption. The truth is, not everyone will experience this promise, because not everyone will believe it, prepare for it, or act upon it. But for those who do, 2025 will not be just another year. It will be a landmark, a turning point, the moment they look back on and say, that was when everything shifted. The wasted years are not gone, they are being restored. And this year is the doorway into that restoration.